Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion advised. Welcome back, my brothers and sisters of Warcraft. You are now on episode 11 of the Unshackled Fury podcast. I am your host, Berserker, and you may notice that something seems a little different about the show this week. And there's a sound in the air. There's a little buzz going on. What exactly is going on here? Well, after last week was a pretty rage-filled episode, and we're dancing, and I decided, after all the heat that came off of episode 10, I needed to kick up my sabaton somewhere. I needed to go to a place where I knew I could kick back, relax, unwind with a few other freaks in the world of Warcraft. So I hit my interdimensional whistle, hopped on some sort of spaceship that I couldn't even bother to describe to you, and here I am, coming to you this week live from the Lion's Pride Inn in Goldshire on the Moonguard server. That's right. We're going to the real place of rest and relaxation and all kinds of craziness that's going on here. In fact, I've got I've got equipment running here. You can't. No, you can't dance up here. No. What? We can do that later. No, just hold the room. Just hold the room. Yes, so here we are in Lion's Pride. And let me tell you, I've already gone upstairs, and there were a couple of druids. In fact, there were a group of druids doing some things that I have a feeling are illegal in at least 20 zones. But you know what? This is where you get your freak on, and that's why I came here. So this week, doing a little bit of live episode for you. I thought we'd change things up a bit. And I've got a night elf who is very insistent on getting my attention here. And who knows? Maybe this show will be cut short because I got to get on this vacation here. So, because I wanted to kick back this week, I wanted to make sure that I kept it low-key, so there will not be a rage portion of the show this week. We're just going to cut into the news right now and talk about a few other things as we go along. So, last couple of weeks, we've had some interesting pieces of news dropping in and out of here. The first, and now this may not be the most exciting piece of news, but we did have an investor relations call for Activision Blizzard this week, and in it they talked about essentially the financial health of the parent company of Activision Blizzard, which of course owns World of Warcraft, all of the Blizzard titles, also Call of Duty, and several other very well-known titles, including Destiny. This is the Candy Crush, I think because they own King. There were several pieces of information that came out in this earnings call, which, this used to be a huge thing for us, right? Because this is when we'd get all the subscriber numbers for World of Warcraft, and everybody would claim that the sky was falling, and we've lost 2 million subscribers and 3 million subscribers, and now we're only 5-6 million strong, as opposed to 12 million strong, and big hue and cry that used to come out of these calls. So they killed that last year. They don't report our subscriber numbers anymore, and it's more of a overall health of the company call. So what did we find out? Well, we found out that people are playing an absolute shit ton of games and are spending literally billions of hours playing the games that are owned by Activision Blizzard. In fact, one of the slides here that they had presented during the presentation was displaying that 42 billion hours of time have been spent in the last 12 months, played time on content owned by this parent company. Now, to put that in comparison, that is on the level of Netflix. That the number that they gave was 42.5 billion, so 42 to 42.5 right in there, as opposed to, let's say, U.S. professional sports viewing was 10 billion. So 4 times as much time is being spent playing these games as people are watching NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and hockey. And, well, hockey's never been huge, but that's huge. That is an absolute monster number. So if there was any doubt about the financial health of Activision Blizzard, it was safe to say in this call, they're making an insane amount of profit. People are playing their games like crazy. So although we don't get the subscriber numbers like we used to, it is very apparent that Activision Blizzard is doing well. World of Warcraft, it seems, has taken maybe a bit of a step back, where Hearthstone is now the driving economic force, it would seem, as they are listed multiple times. They're also listed first in the sense that they are driving millions of active players every day. They are teasing Legion, talking about it coming out August 30th. That will be likely very big for them. So when those next quarter earnings come out, or possibly third quarter earnings come out, because this is only quarter one, I'll be sure to report something to you and see what sort of impact we're making on that front when Legion comes out. So that sort of rolls into one of the other main topics that I wanted to talk about this week, and a lot of it involves Ian Hassakostas, Watcher, as you may know him on the forums. He was a little bit active over the last week and a half or so, talking about Legion, how it's developing, and some important things that he wanted to get out about the development that is currently going on and has been going on. And one of them was a post that was put up back on the 9th of this month of May. And in it, he discusses something that I think is very important, in the sense that sometimes we get very focused. We as players, we focus on the particular aspects of Warcraft that are the most important to us. So if we PvP, you're blowing up Holinka on Twitter saying, where the fuck is all this stuff? Why is Ashran shit? You know, you're blowing him up because that's your niche. That's the thing that you're most focused on. That's what's most important to you. Maybe it's the auction house. Maybe you're one of these auction house barons and you're making millions of gold or whatever the thing is, but you know, you're worried about bots, and why aren't they taking care of bots fast enough, and what's going on with that, and you're screwing up the economy, and you know, are these vendor items, are they going for too much or too little, and are you listening to us on those angles? Or is rating one of your big things? Oh, LFR is shit, it's destroyed everything, or these encounters are bullshit, or they're good, or they're bad, or whatever. Or maybe it's alts, oh, you're not treating alts, or professions, or whatever it is. The point of this post is that there are many communities within the larger Warcraft community, and it is that player base as a whole that makes Warcraft what it is. And so when going through, and he talked about how there's the complaint that, particularly with Legion, that, man, I'm sweating in here. This inn is hot. Woo! There's a lot of activity going on in here. Hey, can I get a beer? Yeah. Thank you. Hold on for me. Just 1 second. Hold on. Oh, that's good. So essentially what he was saying is that when forum posters complain about, well, we're not being listened to, and you guys say, okay, thanks for the feedback, but kind of fuck off, we're not going to actually do any of what you suggested, there is this larger thing to keep in mind, which is that not everybody shares that same viewpoint, and that there will always be multiple viewpoints on generally any topic. So when we say in this sort of blanket way that nobody likes anything, that's not necessarily true. I can tell you for a fact, as a Fury Warrior, the changes that I have seen, there are some people that absolutely love them. There are some people that absolutely hate them. And it's funny because it's that very human thing about us, or maybe it's a Worgen thing, or a Tauren thing, or a Gnome thing, I don't know, maybe we all have it, where we look through the lens that we want to look through. And that is the only thing that we see. And we can look at the exact same thing as someone else, but see two completely different things. And the developers, I don't envy them, because they're in the position of having to balance all of these various micro communities that exist within Warcraft. And having to balance that is quite a Herculean task. I don't envy them. I think even the Titans would have a hard time balancing that sort of creation, in the sense that they're trying to keep it balanced on all facets. So essentially the bottom line of this posting by Watcher was that when we get involved in these herd mentalities, where we gravitate towards people like ourselves that share these similar visions, it's very easy to get trapped into this idea that, well, here are all of us and we have these great ideas and nobody's listening to us. And there are all of these little groups that protect these little fiefdoms that say, well, this is our thing, and this is what it is, and why doesn't this work? And we have to keep in mind that there are many voices in the podcasting community, right? There are many voices within this game, and having to pick and choose which voices are listened to is a very difficult position to be in. I think that Blizzard has done as well as they can in terms of communicating with us on this. I just don't know if anything like this post is actually going to serve any good. It was a great long read in the sense that it delved into some of their thinking, and it's a defense piece, really. It's trying to argue for their own case, saying, we do listen to you guys. It's just that we have to listen to many voices, and sometimes things will seem arbitrary or like we're not listening, but we are taking these things into account. I think a lot of this is just going to feed into people's preconceived notions, that they'll read this and go, well, this is just their excuse for saying fuck off, or, oh, okay, well, I've always thought they've been pretty reasonable before. I feel that they're being pretty reasonable now. I don't really know that this does any good in the long run, because people, again, we see what we want to see, and if anything, this is just another Rorschach test for us to, whether we see somebody being butchered to pieces or whether we see a field full of flowers. It's that kind of thing. But I do give him credit for trying to be as forward as possible in the sense that they're addressing these concerns, they're addressing this feedback, and it did get quite a conversation going amongst the community in the last week or so. He also, this week, had a chat on Twitch, a live chat, which was also hosted by Jesse Cox, in which they talked about developments with the Legion Alpha. Honestly, it didn't amount to much other than the big announcement was that this past week, the beta, the quote-unquote beta, finally went live. And believe it or not, your host, Berserker, this guy right here, finally got in on the action. I finally got my beta invite. Me and my boy, we were rolling around in there, taking a look at some demon hunters, and holy smokes, these guys are something else. In PvP, just thinking about it, I gotta get a drink just thinking about this. Bartender, gonna need another one. Double jumping, eye beaming, glaive wielding, just crazy ass stuff going on. It was pretty well put together at this point. There wasn't too much that I could tell that the developers are still working on. But man, they're awesome. Demon Hunters, let me tell you, if you haven't had a chance to get your hands on one of them yet, either through the alpha or now in the beta, when the time comes, if you get early access, you get invited to a later beta wave, whatever it is, I don't care who you are, it's going to be something to see. They have some very fun, unique abilities. The class focus, that's one of the things that Blizzard has really tried to get in on, is this idea that we're going to hone in on what makes each class very special. The Demon Hunters have a great backstory. You really are hemmed into one of two races, either Blood Elf or Night Elf. But the whole aesthetic of being this demon hunter who trained under Illidan and who came from the Black Temple, and if you read the Illidan book, all the crazy shit that you have to do to become one, and there's a great story there that's unfolding, and it may be the high point of Legion. I don't know. We'll get to the actual playthrough in August, in September, but so far the Demon Hunters are going to just be one of the clear high points, because they're touching on all the right spots. They're making you feel some connection with the story, in that you were being trained at the Black Temple prior to our Burning Crusade era, that you had some things going on. There's something that happens in the middle, and suddenly now you are in the present, and there's this invasion going on, and of all people, Maiev, Shadow Song, is breaking you out of prison, and it's crazy. It's fucking wild, and it's a lot of fun. As somebody who got to play through it already, I have enjoyed those few minutes, and I can finally focus on being my warrior self here before too long, except my dumbass spilled coffee all over my keyboard and it shorted out, so now I'm back to piece of junk regular keyboard that this old-ass computer came with. So so I'm a klutz beyond being an idiot. I'm also a klutz, so yeah. But when that gets rectified, we're going to see what else this beta has to offer, and I will try to give some insight into what I can. I don't want to spoil too much. I'm trying not to spoil too much for myself. I did play through a little bit of the Broken Shore scenario, and it was pretty buggy. I did get to Dalaran at one point, and NPCs were phasing out. I couldn't interact with anything. The whole city was empty. It was kind of weird. It's kind of like what it is now on live, actually. Couple Death Knights rolling through. Yeah, so I'll keep you posted as that goes on, but it was great to see that they finally brought the beta. They're going to start inviting people in larger waves, and we'll all get a chance to see what all the cool people have been hanging out and seeing. And now it'll be finally us, the regular people. It'll be our turn. Another piece of news that we had was, if you'll remember a few months ago, I had talked about how Blizzard was expanding their broadcasting, their esports. They wanted to, you can see where they bought out Major League Gaming, or they had some partnerships with some other entities when they consolidated all of the StarCraft viewing. They hired the former CEO of ESPN to start helming their esports division. And now, finally, we are seeing the culmination, or at least the beginning of what that culminates into. So this past week, we had an announcement from Activision Blizzard Media Networks, which I didn't even know was a thing, announced that they are going to be debuting an enhanced viewing experience for broadcasting events. In my mind, I'm thinking about StarCraft. However, the first event to showcase this will be during the MLG Anaheim Open, which is a Call of Duty Black Ops 3 tournament on June 10th, so less than a month away. The event will be part of a larger collaboration with Facebook, which is apparently how this thing is going to work. And in their statement, they say, quote, with over 1.6 billion people on the platform, Facebook, and a growing suite of video-on-demand and live streaming products that partners can use to increase engagement, Facebook is uniquely positioned to help esports fans connect around exciting moments and great esports content. We're thrilled to be working with Activision Blizzard Media Networks, a leader in esports, to help fans enjoy and share a variety of exciting new formats and programming on our platform. A lot of what this announcement goes on to say as well is that part of the broadcast, I guess what we'll be seeing on our screens, there'll be high-definition video screens, but they will also be showing some sort of result or product of an algorithmic system that they have, which is going to show us match statistics, up-to-the-minute leaderboards, and situational insights, as they call them, based on whatever competition we are watching. So it's going to be, I know with Heroes of the Dorm, we saw some maps that they had, a few other things where they were showing, just some real basic information. And I think it's like most sporting events where you'll see box scores or different, little statistics come up. And for us, it looks like we're going to get an even more enhanced version of that. So as time goes on, I hope that this grows beyond just the Call of Duty ranks. That maybe we'll be seeing some, Heroes of the Storm, I think, is really a perfect match for something like this. StarCraft, perhaps, that is one of the biggest broadcasting events that Blizzard has, are the StarCraft events. So we'll see. But it's a good sign. It's something that clearly, again, as I've said before, Blizzard is spending a lot of time and effort to build and put this thing together. So it'll be very curious to see what they come up with. And I for one, am excited. I've always enjoyed staying up till, not enjoyed staying up till 2 a.m. to watch StarCraft tournaments from Korea. But I do enjoy watching these broadcasts. So having something that's a little more professional and brought right into my own home, can't complain about that. It's almost like the old days of watching Pride in Japan at 3 a.m. and now I get to watch, UFC on Fox or whatever it is, in a mainstream primetime format. So that's pretty cool. One other thing that I wanted to follow up on this week was, so a couple weeks ago, we talked about the closure of the Nostalrius server, the legacy server, the vanilla server that existed for some folks. In fact, it was a very popular server that was shut down, and at the time that it was shut down, it was due to a lawsuit by Blizzard or some legal action that had been taken by Blizzard. And one of the things that they had said, and one of the things that I had echoed and completely agree with, is that part of the reason why they have to do this is because they have to protect their intellectual property. So what exactly does that mean? Well, as I'd said before, if and when the time comes when they have to bring injunctive action against somebody, the court may ask, well, what attempts have you made to protect your intellectual property? If there are others that have gone in the past and you haven't done anything about it, why now? Those sorts of questions. And one of the things that I had said is, well, in the U.S. it's one thing, but one of the bigger things that you can look at is when you go outside of the United States, particularly to China, where apparently intellectual property law is quite different to the point where they had a World of Warcraft theme park. Well, now, right before we're about to get our own Warcraft film, China has announced that they have their own Warcraft film called, and I shit you not, My World of Warcraft. Blizzard is not involved in this anyway. The Chinese tagline translates to something to the effect of, a man gets transported to a fantasy world of Warcraft where the impossible occurs. And at the press event, they had a chick dressed up like Alexstrasza. They had a dude in paladin gear. I mean, it is a completely obvious ripoff. And this is the kind of stuff that can happen. So I understand when people complain about closures like Nostalrius, and it does require Blizzard and different people to have that larger conversation. But this is the kind of stuff that happens out there where across the globe there are people out there that are trying to rip off Blizzard's intellectual property. You know, imagine that's you. Imagine that you've poured your heart and soul into some creative endeavor and you've created, whatever it is. Whether it's an art piece or a show or you've written a book or whatever the thing is, and you come to find out that somebody has completely ripped off your idea, has printed it, made it, constructed it, very similar to what you have done, you would want to be able to do something about that. And that's a lot of what this is here. So I'll be curious to see if they can actually do anything about it. Apparently this is going on, and I don't know. International law is not exactly my forte, but I'm sure that Blizzard will do whatever they can. But again, this is why they have to go after the people that they can, because this happens fairly regularly. All right. So I mentioned at the start of the show that I was doing this episode live from the Lion's Pride Inn in Goldshire on the Moonguard server, and part of the reason I wanted to do that was, I wanted to have sort of a lighter episode this week. But part of the reason, too, is because I wanted to talk about something that is at the very core of World of Warcraft. So when you look up World of Warcraft on the internet, what is the acronym that you typically see next to WoW? MMORPG. Massive multiplayer online role-playing game. Role-playing. Role-playing is as much a part of this game as it is... Oh, it's dance time. We're getting our dance on. Someone hit the bomb. Oh, man, there must be 200 people in here, and half of them are naked. And there's more on this table. Man, this place is fun. So, when you think about Warcraft, what are its roots? Dungeons and Dragons, role-playing games, those sorts of things. And what exactly is it to role-play? And I thought it would be kind of fun this week to do something different and talk about what exactly that means. Now, when you first sign into Warcraft and you're creating a character, you have a choice. So let's start with that. You have a choice. Do you want to play on PvE, so player versus environment? PvP, player versus player? You can also choose what's called an RP, or role-playing server. And if you want to do that, you don't necessarily have to do it on a role-playing server. You can do it on any server, really. But it's the idea that you are not you playing a character, right? So it's, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm playing this thing today. It's you are that character. So for me, I am Berserker, a warrior from Lordaeron, whose father was killed by the Lich King in the great downfall of Lordaeron that happened many, many moons ago. And he was a blacksmith, and he gave Berserker this message to go and do all these great things and to live this life and, you know, seek vengeance or whatever, all this kind of stuff, right? It adds a bit of a flavor to playing the game that I think goes back to the roots of what this game is, and it can add a whole nother element to what you're doing in-game. So let's say you want to roleplay. Hold on, I need a drink. So let's say you've made that decision. You want to roleplay, you pick a role-playing server. What should you do? Well, think about what kind of backstory you want to have. If you're a human, where do you come from? If you're a night elf, what is your motivation? Why did you leave your big tree island? If you are a worgen, what's it like now that the wall has come down and you've been broken out of Gilneas? If you're any one of these other races, what is your backstory? Where do you come from? What makes you you? What makes you interesting or compelling as a player to engage with your fellow guildmates or other players that you come across in various inns and different things? Some things to keep in mind are, you know, what abilities do you have? You can't be godlike. Okay, you can't just go in and say, yes, I soloed the Lich King, because that's not very realistic. You have to keep things grounded. You have to think about, okay, what is something that could be practically done by this character? What sort of fashion are you into? Do you walk around naked like everyone in front of me here in this inn? Do you hail from the south, where maybe things are a little skimpier? Or do you come from the icy cold of Northrend? Do you constantly wear furs and several layers of clothing? Those kinds of things. You know, are you motivated by raiding? Are you motivated by gold making? You know, what is it that keeps you going? You know, it's the beauty of the storytelling, and you can make it your own. You can be a pirate from the South Seas. You can be, a worgen who wants to be a cleric at the Northshire Abbey. You can do any one of these things, and it's an exercise that I think every player should try to take on at least once, just for shits and giggles, because it really is at the root, at the core of what a role-playing game is. If every one of us who has ever sat down had to create a character for D&D, you have to go back and you have to think, okay, well, what is my character? Where do they come from? And react to the situations that are presented to you in character. You know, you wouldn't say, oh, well, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think, Steve? What do you think, Rick? What do you think, Susie? It's answering in characters, keeping those things in mind, and it's its own kind of unique challenge. I think that everybody really should try it at least once. There are some great guides out there. Anne Stickney, one of the writers for Blizzard Watch, does keep up a regular column about role-playing. Had a great one recently about the demon hunters and what to expect as a demon hunter, things to keep in mind. There's several blogs out there, YouTube videos, other posts that can guide you into. There's certain add-ons for character descriptions, certainly transmog. Now that we can do that, it's great for these sorts of things. It's great for RP, because then you can change depending on the situation or whatever it is that you and your group or you on your own are going to be doing. There's forums. There are certainly Blizzard forums that you can log into and take a look and see what people have different suggestions on conduct, how to behave, how to interact with each other, maintain yourself being in character versus out of character, and what all of that looks like. So, as somebody who, when I went on a show called The Converted, hosted by some wonderful people, Belschnickel, Cuddles now, it used to be Navox, but now it's Cuddles, and Salmisis, all great, wonderful people. I had a bet with Sal several years ago about the fate of the Dark Below. Remember, that was a title that was going to go around for a while, that went around for a while as a potential, before we found out it was Warlords of Draenor. the bottom line is that she had to sing a song about my character, about Berserker, and I had to come up with this whole backstory about who Berserker was and where he came from, and how he downed the Lich King with all of his other adventurers, and I had a lot of fun doing that kind of stuff. I think that when you challenge yourself and you come up with these sorts of stories, and that's the kind of imagination that I think we all have, or a lot of us have as kids, and we kind of forget about those aspects of ourselves, and it's fun. It's part of why we do all of this in the first place. Is it's fun, and it connects us with something that maybe we'd forgotten about, and it gives you a chance to flex that creative muscle, that imaginative muscle, and do something that you wouldn't normally do. So I encourage all of you, check it out, take a shot, jump in the role play. It's not just something you have to do at night with your significant other or a few other people if that's your gig. It's something you can do in game too. And if you go up to the second level of the Lion's Pride Inn in Goldshire on Moonguard, you could probably do a whole bunch of stuff. There's some there's a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on in here. So anyway, role playing, give it a shot. So that's it for episode 11 of Unshackled Fury, the live edition. Thank you very much for joining me again this week. As always, you can find this show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and now Google Play. If you'd like to send any sort of communication to me, you can reach me on Twitter at BerserkerRage, and you can also email me at unshackled.furyshow@gmail.com. So until next time, my friends, flex that creative muscle, have a good time, get out there, see what's doing, and we will see you next time. Strength and honor to you all. Now, where's that beer? Bartender! Bartender!